On today's edition, I'm talking to one half of one of my favorite NXT and WWE tag teams. It's Viktor from the Ascension. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for having me on your show. How are you doing today?
I am doing great because today we're going to talk about a lot of things I think a lot of people from the original NXT days are going to get some answers. And I think we're going to get some answers today with you, especially because you're part of the first ever roster of the NXT programming that was on the WWE network. Yes, there was FCW. Yes, there was other organizations, but you're part of the first class of NXT wrestlers to be presented on
That's
television
true.
on the network. How does that make you feel? Because, from 50 years from now, when people are still doing interviews with you, they're going to ask you about what was it like being part of the first ever NXT class in the new facility as well.
Yeah, it's weird. You're actually the first person to ever ask me that I
Wow.
can remember. Because even though I lived it, I've never really thought about it that much. Um, I know like Sean one time had said something to Connor about that, and I just don't feel like I ever thought about it again. I mean, but it is pretty cool. It's funny because I'd been sent like a picture a couple times recently that had like a bunch. It must be like that initial
It
roster
is.
of NXT, and I kind of wondered what it was from because like I know so many of those guys from just that my time in developmental within FCW and moving into NXT, and I'm really bad at like time in my head. Like I don't know what happened, what year. At all. Like for some reason, I've been able to keep the last 5 years kind of together, but like everything else, like before that, time wise, is very tricky. Like I can remember the year I went to OVW, or even like the year I got signed was like a little iffy for a while. I think I had to actually see my contract to remember. Um, but yeah, other than that, it gets so blurred together because when I saw that all those pictures of the guys, there was a few where I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of remember them. You know what I mean? But like they weren't really there for long enough, so I always wondered when exactly that was. So if that was the first initial NXT roster, that's interesting.
That's
That's
the
funny.
picture. Yeah, the picture you're talking about.
Okay.
On that picture, you have wrestlers like
Okay.
Roman Reigns, Dean
Yeah.
Ambrose, Seth
Yeah.
Rollins, you, Byron Saxton, Corey
Yeah.
Graves. Uh, it's crazy. Bray
I mean, there's
Wyatt. Like
Tyler
it's
Breeze.
nuts to
Yeah. There's
think about.
both
Yeah,
the
Tyler Breeze
Rotundos.
before he was Tyler Breeze.
Yeah.
Uh, I think
Xavier
EC3 is
Woods is
there
on there
before he's
too.
EC3. Like Fandango before he's Fandango. Like there's a lot of
Right.
pieces there to that puzzle that eventually that
Yeah.
original class either stayed in the WWE or splintered off into other organizations, creating memories that will last a lifetime and great matches
Yeah.
too. So like that's the thing
Yeah.
is too. You look at that first class. It's not just, oh, these are the wrestlers we hired and they're going to do well. You guys created like the foundation. If it wasn't going to go well there, then we wouldn't be here in 2024 talking about this.
True. Yeah, it is pretty wild, I guess, because it was such a big jump when we went from just doing FCW stuff at the building to like full time NXT, and especially when we made that move to Orlando, like completely from FCW, because it was kind of just so. Oh, I don't know. It really is like because I loved the original developmental system. Like I did enjoy like FCW and like when I was in OVW, like there's just something cool about it. But once you move to like NXT, like when we moved to Orlando, like it was no joke. Not that it was before, but it was definitely like, oh, no, they're actually paying attention now, because developmental a lot of the time felt like you were on an island where the company wasn't paying attention, and but by then we knew like how invested Paul was and everything. Um, because it didn't take long for that performance center to get built. Like that idea came about, and well, I guess really they just found the building, but it didn't take that long. Once he had the idea and NXT was really rolling, that all happened really fast. Like, and they outgrew that building really fast. So, like, that's, a testament to really like Hunter's vision. Like, I know there is a lot of us that are there, but as we all see, like WWE, the people are all moving parts. We all play our roles and do what we can. But I mean, a lot of that was his vision, and I give him a lot of credit for that. And it was mainly because of his drive to want to do something um, to help the company, to like do something with a part that maybe wasn't like generating the way it should have been. And he completely turned around the developmental system for that. So,
So
that's really what watching that was. That was like going from, you know, the most basic stage of developmental to all of a sudden you are in a NFL combine factory. You know what I mean? And that's the way it's rolling. And now there's cameras all the time on everything. You're always being watched. You're always working. You know, it was very much a different system, but like all like for good reasons. Because like I don't feel like of course there's definitely a lot of frustration when you're in developmental, or at least there probably used to be a lot more because there used to be a lot more waiting. Now I don't think there's as much waiting. Um, people have a lot more answers, or they see where they're going to go sooner than later in that system. I don't think there's a lot of downtime, but I could be wrong. But I think that's the difference. There was definitely a lot of downtime with kind of Groundhog's Day and developmental before, and there still was when we first got into NXT, but or even into the Performance Center. But I think that might have changed by now. I would imagine. You
it feels like a lot of things have changed over the past 10 years
hmm
when NXT first made its birth on the, showing up on
Right.
WWE Network. But with you talking about FCW now, I was at a WrestleMania panel and Seth Rollins was talking about FCW and he was like, "Oh, cool, I'm into WWE." And he's driving up to the building. He's
Right.
like, "This can't be the right building. Like this can't be. It's the WWE."
Yeah.
It was hot in the summer, all that stuff. What is the biggest difference you felt like from FCW where you were being trained to NXT? You kind of described it as being like, oh, you're in like a high school gymnasium to like the NFL. So like, what is the biggest difference for you?
I mean, there was a lot of that stuff. Like facility is definitely number one, and it's not that like FCW wasn't like a good facility, but of course you you want to think like I imagine WWE wanted to go. This is something we could put on like a reality show,
Yes, they
like
did a
that we
couple
could use
times.
for everything that they have done, which is not really what they could have done within FCW. Like it was too small. Like they had three rings, but like one was a showroom and one was the training room. And so there just wasn't that flash and flare and all the like the trainer's office for the medical guy, it was two beds and like a sink. That was about it. And there was times where there was 50 people on the injury reserve list. Like it wasn't possible to house and facilitate the amount of people that they were having going through there. So like that was another big difference too, was of course like there was a huge medical upgrade um, going to the Performance Center as well. Like it was just like they were just making mini WWE because that was what they had to do to make developmental profitable, or make it actually work, to make it do something for the company other than like occasionally pull up, you know, one or two guys, or how the system unfortunately worked before. It was very slow. So
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But even when they've had some of their top stars ever of all time come out of their smaller developmental systems, like how many did OVW produce? It's insane.
Well, I was gonna say, there's only, it's funny about OVW is they always bring up this one class with John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Brock Lesnar,
Yeah,
and Shelton Benjamin. That's one class at OVW. But again, they
you're
never talk
right.
about the other classes of OVW. So it's like, because you
You're
can
right.
point at
And
those
there was
names of
a
all being
lot.
very successful.
Yes, there was definitely a
Like that's
lot.
a
Like even to this day, there's still a lot of OVW people out there um, in the wrestling business today.
yeah,
So
yeah. And what's funny is when you were in NXT though, you have promo classes and Dusty Rhodes is there and all these
right,
characters are trying to figure out who they are, what they're going to be. And Husky Harris, who eventually became Bray Wyatt, he's there.
right.
And his brother recently also said that Husky Harris, Wyndham, was going to be fired if he didn't change up something. So I
Yep.
imagine you are there in promo class because you are part of the first class with Bray Wyatt, and you're sitting there, most likely sweaty, hot, tired, and yet here comes Husky Harris. But he's not Husky Harris anymore. He's developing a new character, Bray Wyatt. Can you tell me that day when you were sitting there watching this, did you feel something change in the air, being like, man, you know, this is Undertaker, Kane-esque. Like there's something here more than just the normal. This guy's a little deep and scary.
Yeah. So like I can remember at that time actually because they had told him he had to bring something new like every week. Like he had to basically do something new. um, until they found it, or else he was going to be fired. And I think he only had like a month to do it or something, because they used to like doing things like that to
Wow.
people down there. It'd always make you feel really good
Yeah.
when you get those reviews, or I guess in his case, he was sent back down there for a while. Then they did that, but he did a couple others. But I mean, he was so talented as it was. Like he couldn't really not get up there and entertain us, no matter what it was he did. Because there was a few characters that were really funny, and one was named, I think, Daryl, and it was just like a dude. So it was like a hick dude, but it was like an awesome hick dude, tough guy type thing. It was that was just one of them that I remember. But so there had been like two or three, but I do remember that the day that he came in, all dressed in his Tommy Bahama shirt and the fedora, and he cut I can't 100% remember the promo. I know I was there, but I'm pretty sure Dream walked out and he just pointed at him and said, "That's it, baby. That's the one. Come here." And they went in the office, and like that, it was off to the races from there.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I could be mistaken because I forget a bunch of stuff, but like I feel like that was the end of that promo when that Dream just said, "That's it." And like I have so many different memories of things. Like it's possible that Dream could have told everybody that that was the story, right then, like this guy was going to get fired, but that this was it. I mean, that happened at one point in time throughout all that. So, um, but even then, because I remember watching everything come together, so I can't remember if like he had all the people with him at first, um, because like I'd seen so many different versions of what he was doing with it, and sometimes he had people, sometimes he didn't have people. Um, I just can't remember which exactly one was the first one, but I know I saw it, and I saw many other ones because then I was trying to get in there too.
You were
So
trying to join the Wyatt family?
yes, very much so. And like I was even in the initial Titantron videos for them. Like I was one of the people in front of them. There was a couple of us. I know it was myself, a guy who was Bronson. He was actually on the initial NXT roster, and maybe Jody Christopherson, possibly. And then Audrey Marie was the woman in the tree, like in the initial, like very first Bray Wyatt Titantrons. I'm pretty sure, or
Wow.
like
The ones
promo
where he's in
vignettes
the
or something.
woods and you guys are like
Yep,
praising him?
yep,
Wow. Little Easter egg there.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's funny. I haven't seen that. I know I'd seen that picture not too long ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that day. That was cool.
Well, with you, you have the Ascension, but Ascension originally has a bunch of different members in it. Ricardo Rodriguez is
Right.
in it. You're in it. Obviously, Connor, other people. And then as time goes on, Ricardo gets called up. Now he's the personal ring announcer for Alberto Del Rio. And then some people get injured in your
Well,
group. Some people get fired. Some people change. But eventually, it all comes together, and it's you and Connor, the Ascension. And again,
right.
if no one has ever tuned into the original NXT, first say 20 episodes, the Ascension were the glue to the tag team division because you were
Mm.
booked to be dominant. You come out, destroy people. That was it. That's what we wanted. That's all we needed. And that was what really brought a lot of people to the table. Be like, damn, if you book a team or a person as a dominant force, they're looked at as a dominant force. Now, where was your development on that becoming who you were? Like, was there a class with you as well, cutting promos, or this was just a whole different situation? Because the Ascension really, they cut promos, but they didn't cut them as long as some people do.
I guess we didn't do very many live promos. Um, they always had us like in the back of NXT somewhere when we would do promos and stuff. I mean, we spent a lot of time working with like Bill, Byron Saxton, um, Perry Saturn actually helped us a bunch at the beginning because he was around in FCW when we first got paired kind of together um, at that point. Dream helped us a bunch too. Um, although like the funny story is like Dream didn't like me for Ascension.
Dusty Rose didn't like you? What'd you
No,
do? What'd you do, Victor?
I don't know, man. I could never really figure it out because like we'd actually pitched it um, quite a few times because Norman Smiley was the one who was always like, why is Viktor like not an Ascension? Like it was pretty much how he put it. Like this is like a no-brainer, and it's not happening. Um, and Dream's thing was like, not for you, baby. This is not for you. But he like wouldn't say why. And I mean, I don't know. Like I'm not. Maybe I'm not a star like some of the other guys were, or
Hmm.
something. I don't know. Because I didn't not get along with Dream. Um, I did not work well with him. You know, I loved working with him in FCW. Um, so I could never quite figure that out, I guess. But then, like, because I can remember one day, the day that I kind of stopped getting friction about it was we were cutting a promo. We were doing our promo class, and I have no idea what the promo was. I can't remember. But Dream just walked out of his little office there in FCW. He looks at me and he goes, "Well, Rick Victor, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it because they like it. So yeah, that's it. Just keep doing it because I guess you're the new Ascension. All right, good." And then he turned around and walked back into his office.
So you
It's
got a.
like
It
Connor
sounds
just
like he got
looked
a
at
phone call being like, "Hey, stop giving
kind
that
of
guy shit because we like him and he's in the Ascension."
yeah, like it was just kind of like it's just kind of funny because they would just the way it went like a lot of the times was they were like, okay, you be like Connor, and I was like, okay, cool, but like so me and Connor be like, so like I get it, like this is how we are, like we're a team but we're ourselves, like that was our thing, like we match but we're not like identical, you know what I mean? We kind of get our own um we get our own thing going on, and we were cool with that. It was very easy to do, and then eventually it was like, okay, now we want Ryan to, Connor to be more like you, and we're like, what? Like this is stupid. Like why can't just let us be ourselves, because that's what works. And honestly, like that's more or less what ended up happening. But of course, they kept changing the look, by the time we got to the main roster, and then we kind of still did our own thing. But it's just how it was. It was just very silly, those little back and forths of like, be like this, now be like this. And it's like we're just ourselves. Like, and
Right.
we're really not that much different that it matters. So
Interesting that it's always do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, but it's like you probably know yourself better than anyone else, so maybe let the stars align. And I think that's what's happening in today's world with Triple H now involved. You can clearly tell that some people have control over who their characters are versus being like, this is a script, these are the words,
right,
say them. Like these are someone
yeah,
else's words though, but yeah, but I don't care, say them. And then if you don't say them the way
yeah,
they imagined in their brain, well, then you didn't deliver the way they imagined it, and then down roll hill. I think things have changed obviously, and that's what's so weird about the first season again of NXT, the on the show on the network, because in 2014 when the WWE network first opened up, they were trying to test out live events because the WWE didn't have any pay-per-views on the
right,
network yet. So they had
yeah,
NXT Arrival, the first ever live WWE network special, and you're on it. And we have, Neville, and we have Sami Zayn. And when they thought Cesaro wasn't good enough to be on Raw or SmackDown, so he was on there. It was such a great,
right.
great atmosphere because everyone wanted to succeed. Take me through that, because that kind of reminds me of like when ECW had its first ever pay-per-view in 97, Barely Legal, where you can tell something is happening. We don't see it yet, but like change is occurring. What was your feelings like during that day? How much pressure are you feeling as a performer trying to put on something that they want to succeed and they need to succeed?
Hmm.
As he pontificates his thoughts.
I mean, it's such an interesting question because I have a really weird attitude compared to like a lot of other people, I guess.
Okay.
And I mean, it just be a lot of the times in developmental, like I think that group especially just everybody was in a mindset where I don't know if they realized what we were doing in that moment. Like you kind of do, but you don't. Looking back at it now, I don't think. I think a lot of us were. I mean, as it turns out, like a lot of us were about to definitely prove ourselves one way or another and like lay down the foundation. But I don't think we were looking at it like that. Like everybody was probably more stressed out with our own dealings behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, like, and kind of how it felt. Like, I don't think it felt like it was going to be what it turned out to be. I mean, I think everybody knew that they were going to go out there and deliver. but I don't think they, you know, I don't know. We weren't thinking NXT was going to be what it is
Mm.
now. Back then, I'll tell you that much. Like at least that wasn't my mindset anyway. Um, because that was the first one where we were working the Kalisto and El Local, right? Is that what was on that one?
NXT Arrival.
Do you remember? Yeah. Is that which one it
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
was?
You lost your NXT Tag Team Championships that day.
Oh, on that one. Oh, okay.
Actually, you know what? Since we're here, let's just use the old Google machine because I don't want to say something and someone's like, "No, you were
Well,
wrong."
I
Because
mean,
let's see. Oh no, never mind. You defeated Too Cool. I remember that. You defeated Too Cool, Scarlett
oh,
Johansson,
okay.
Master
So it was two.
Sexay. You eventually do lose
Oh, okay.
championships to like the Lucha Dragons,
That's which one
but
it was.
this is the
Okay.
one where no one knew who you were fighting, and you came out, and everyone's like, "Yeah!" Then Too Cool came out, and people lost their minds because they haven't seen Too
Right.
Cool in this is 2014, so it must have been
Yeah,
a
it had been a
decade.
while. That one was super cool. I loved working with those two guys. Um, that one was a lot of fun. It was just one of those funny things where, like, Scotty had kind of been, he had been to the performance center. He was more used to like the system, and like
Mhm.
Brian was not. Kind of, he wasn't smart to the system, I guess, and how things were. I don't think he knew maybe who we were, and like a lot of our stuff was very micromanaged at that point in time. And so like that was kind of stressful because like I felt bad about that, but when it came down to what happened in the ring, it didn't matter. Like, and I always like was happy that every time I saw Brian after that. It was always really cool. Um, because like I grew up watching him and Scotty, so
Yeah.
like getting to like work them, and I think I was the first person to ever stop the worm, is what Scotty told us at the time,
Oh
which I
my.
didn't, you know what I mean? I had no idea. So like that was pretty huge at the time. And I mean too, that was the first time that kind of let us do more, like actually work somewhat.
You had a
Um,
6 minute and 40-minute match, and previous to that, your matches really didn't go past 2 minutes.
right, but they usually didn't give us like guys to work with. You
Right.
know what
Just
I
beat them
mean?
up.
Like
Beat them
they,
up.
yeah, it was a lot of that, which at the time we were really frustrated with because we were like, okay, like this is cool for a bit, but like we need to do more. And so like we were really begging to be able to do more at that point in time. And so even then, that's funny that we only had that little time with them thinking about thinking about it. Um,
You're the third longest match on the
uh,
card, actually. No, fourth longest match on the card out of a 6-match card.
wow, okay, wow,
So,
only 6 matches on a card. That's insane.
there's a few. So I'll break down the card, and this is what's
Mm,
crazy about these names that pop up. So
yeah,
Cesaro defeated Sami Zayn. That's Mojo Riley defeated C.J. Parker, who is Juice Robinson.
yeah,
The Ascension defeated Too Cool. Paige Saraya defeated Emma for the NXT Women's Championship. Tyler Breeze defeated
yeah,
Xavier Woods. Excuse me, ended in no contest because I think Big E comes down and destroys both of them. And then the main event is Adrian Neville, Pac taking on Bo
yeah,
Dallas for the NXT Championship in a ladder match. That's the card
yeah.
of the first ever NXT Arrival. And again, you're on it,
Wow.
and I'll keep hitting it home a million times over, but historical events sometimes don't get brought up until way far in advance. And so
I
here we are
guess
10 years later
that's
talking about this. And I think still to this day, people are not appreciating the first season of NXT on the network. And especially because
well,
for a long time, I don't know if you ever heard this, maybe you have, people used to say, well, I don't watch Raw and SmackDown, but I watch NXT. Or I don't watch the WWE, I watch NXT because there was no AEW. There, New Japan was hard to find if you were an American fan. TNA was around, but it wasn't even prominent to what it was with Kurt Angle and Sting and AJ Styles before.
right.
So
Well, and it always
NXT
jumps
became like this
around on
new
whatever
thing.
it
Did you ever
is.
hear that? People didn't watch Raw, SmackDown; they only watch NXT.
A little bit in Canada because I knew for a while it was on TV in Canada all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would hear that quite a bit from
Okay.
up there. Like a lot of my friends that I grew up with and stuff would always be like, it's so weird because I'll be out somewhere and look up and you're on the TV. And it's like always NXT. So
You did hold the tag team
Yeah.
titles for 364 days too, which is quite a feat. And what was
Hmm.
it like winning your championship for the first time ever? Because again, you're talking about how you did watch Too Cool growing up. Now you're a WWE champion. Doesn't matter if it's NXT, Raw, or SmackDown. You're still a champion because not everybody, if you look up and down the roster, has won a title. How did that make you feel?
Oh man, well that was like a really funky day, honestly. Um,
Why was it funky?
I mean, it's just the developmental system at that time was not a positive reinforcement style. I'll put it that way. And so the amount of things we had actually been told leading up to that day, I never really like took anything for granted, um, or like for what it was worth. I didn't put much into it, I guess is what I would say.
Hmm.
Like I was just kind of like, yeah, like I'm still like this to this day until I am doing it, until I'm there, standing there, doing whatever it is, holding whatever it is. It's not happening. Um, and that was one of those, 100% one of those days, because like it had been kind of said to us like, hey, I think they're lining you guys up for this. Um, and then like we got there, and I remember it said something completely different. Um, and I was just like, ah, I knew it, And I was just like, whatever. Like it didn't, it just didn't bug me because like I already didn't believe it anyway. Um, but then we had a conversation with Bill DeMott, and it was, um, it's like that. I don't know what's the term. It's like negative reinforcement
Hmm.
or something like that. Um, I mean, positive from it's so weird because it's exactly like two faces of the same coin, like a double-edged sword, right? Like, because he's telling you something positive, but he's also telling you something super negative at the same time. But he's the positive one, bringing you both the good and the bad news. And so the way that the news gets told to you is both good and bad. Um, and so, like in that case, you're just kind of like left like, what the fuck, like, and I don't know, like that's kind of how I roll. Like that's how I deduce things to being of like that's your pep talk. Like that was awful. But that was kind of like always my experience with WWE in those situations. Um, but yeah, just so funky. And then I mean, there's a lot of things that just went haywire, and I don't want to like expose a bunch of what goes on within the business or within matches or whatever it is. But if I'm not mistaken, there was a bunch of stuff that went wacky in that match that shouldn't really happen on TV on the network. Like at that point in time, like at this point in time, they were still working out a lot of kinks in NXT. Let me tell you that. And I mean, there's the possibility that like what we were gonna do was not the proper thing or something that night. I don't know. There was so much wackiness back then. Like I can't tell you how crazy it was for how much confusion there can be in a wrestling match that there you don't need the confusion for. But television TV like taping is like that, unfortunately. Um, but I think that was the one where there was just a bunch of wackiness. And then at the end of the day, we had a great picture holding up the tag team titles over those guys. So that was what I got to see at the end of the day and for a long time afterwards. But it was just one of those things where it doesn't feel like I've seen somebody win a title, like a young person win a title, and like they get followed by the cameras, and it's one of those like great heartwarming moments that
Yeah.
you see. That was not how it felt when Ascension won the NXT tag titles. Let me tell
Right.
you
Well, I
that.
think
It's like,
obviously you have a personal reason of why, but also your characters aren't the guys who go back there and show you hugging your wife, your babies, your cousins, your
right,
mom who's there visiting. Like they're not going to show the ascension and cut your legs out as a character.
right,
But I do understand the moment you're talking about where it seems like there's confetti shooting off in the sky and balloons and
yeah,
people are crying. No,
yeah,
you beat Neville and you beat Corey Graves the tag team titles. So
yeah,
if we're talking about wackiness there, th- those two are involved in the wackiness of the match itself because
yeah,
Corey Graves eventually will have a concussion. He has to retire. And at the same time, CM Punk got fired. and he had a concussion, he was saying, and then Corey Graves got given a new role as a member of the commentary team. So there's a lot of like, did you get your job because you were good at your job, or did you get your job because of what happened with CM Punk in situations like that? I don't work there. I don't know. But man, at the time on the internet, people certainly believed that Corey Graves was getting that job because the CM Punk concussion thing looked so bad. They're like, all right, we got to bury this somehow. We can say he has a concussion, but we're giving him a
Well,
job. But I don't know. I don't know if any of that's true or not.
well, I know Corey was pretty devastated
Oh, of
with
course, your whole
he
dream was to
got
be a
the,
former wrestler, and now you can't.
and I mean I'm trying like I don't even his I think it was just kind of suggested to him like, hey, do you want to try this?
Mm.
Like it wasn't like a because of. I
Hmm.
think like it was um because they kind of knew he was like good at talking anyway. And like as far as I remember, I think Michael Cole said it to him one time because like he'd been down coming down to the performance center and stuff at the time. And I mean, Corey had too many concussions, but they were really concussion strict on a number of talents. Like it was a problem for a while, like because there was quite a few talents that suffered um, really bad concussions. Like there was guys in developmental that didn't come back
Wow.
after having bad concussions. But like, there was like a few that like they weren't there for very long, and like that's what happened. And so that was, Corey was one of the guys who had been there for a while and just had too many. And so that was even after I know Brian had I think the first series of his that had shut him down. So like I don't believe it was right after just the punk stuff or whatever. Like
Yeah, again, this is what I remember the
there was
rumors online on Twitter, not
for
Twitter, the internet. Everyone was like, "Wait a
yeah,
minute!" Like using like the pins and the strings, and like, "Wait, well, if this guy
yeah,
did this and he did that, I think it's this reason." But again, I
yeah.
never knew the
I
exact
mean,
reason.
like, because I was even there, I was watching the match when it happened to Corey, and so like he was already well aware. They were like, "You are at the point where if this happens again right now, um, like that's going to be it,
Wow.
pretty much." Like 'cause it was just like the magic number. He had had too many in too short of a time. Um, I know he had taken time off to try to like let it heal. And so like we were back because it happened at WrestleMania. We were working Access. And it was in an Access match that some kid tapped him in the back of the head and concussed him right there in the match, and that was it.
Did the match
Um,
stop? Like, did it immediately go
I think
into
so
like, "Oh,
because
we have to
he
stop this
went.
match"?
I think it did because he went down. Because like once it happened, he went down and out, and I'm pretty sure like I remember seeing it happen there because I was watching through the curtain and I was like, oh damn, that's it.
Wow.
Because like I already knew that that was kind of the boat he was in, unfortunately, at that time because it had been going on for a while.
Wow,
So
man. Yeah, you don't find many people who witness the unfortunate end of someone's career, but I believe he has been technically cleared to wrestle, he has said in other interviews. So technically,
oh
just like
well,
how Daniel Bryan had to retire for a while and Edge and
right,
Soraya, like eventually, I think your body eventually heals because you aren't letting it heal. You're like, oh, I'm fine. 2 weeks later, you get another concussion. Oh, I'm fine. 2 weeks later, another
right,
concussion. But
yeah,
December 2014 is when the Ascension gets brought up to the main roster from NXT.
yeah,
And then I think this is the first time this has really happened where NXT wrestler comes up. Okay, first week, success, everything's going great. Next week on commentary, they stop poking fun of your face paint, your gear, the way you speak, your promos, your vignettes. It was like a character assassination watching it live on television. What the hell was that? Because you become the first NXT characters that come up and then get swapped or made fun of or changed. And it's like they didn't think people who watch NXT watch Raw or SmackDown.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was a
that's
character
that, that's.
assassination in your
I
opinion?
mean, I mean, I think what you just said entirely is probably a better answer than what I could give you. I mean, they never really gave us much reason for that. Like, I don't think we knew it happened. In all honesty, like the second week, I think JBL walked up to us and I remember him like explaining, like, hey, this isn't like personal. This is what they want me to do. Trying to do this, help you guys get heat. I kind of went, huh? All right, okay. Because like I'd known JBL for a while. Like I'd met him at OVW, and he was always cool to us and stuff. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? What's going on here? And I think Connor knew about it, and I didn't. And so like we just kind of said whatever and rolled with it. I mean, all the explanations that they gave us at that time were, we're trying to get you guys heat, but really it was like they didn't pay attention that the crowd was watching NXT and they knew us from NXT. And I mean, the first time we ever came up was I think right after that pay-per-view you were talking about. Like we just had like a live event, and our first ever live event to go to was at Madison Square Garden. Pretty awesome, right? Like that was something wrestlers dream of doing. Like, and we had been screaming to go, do live events with the main roster and stuff. And so that was our first one, and it was right after Arrival. Um, so we're working the Colognes, like the Matadors, and Michael Hayes comes up to us and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna have you guys go out there with Vicky Guerrero so that Vicky Guerrero can get you guys some heat, just in case they don't know who you are." And we're like, "All right, cool, that's awesome." Like, no problem there, right? Like I love Vicky Guerrero. It's super sweet. But it just showed that they didn't think that people knew who we were. And I mean, as we were walking up to the building, people knew who we were. Like, it surprised the hell out of me. Like, we didn't know how far, NXT had kind of reached within the WWE universe, let alone to reach Madison Square Garden. And there we were. And so even then, like, it was pretty nuts because, Vicky um, goes out to do her entrance, her intro for us, and she gets booed like mad, of
Yeah.
course, doing her thing, right? And then when she introduces us and our music hits, that place popped. And like it wasn't like boo, it was like an awesome pop, which like I don't know, it's the last one I remember ever getting. So I mean, like that's the one that I always remember, and it was like, oh wow, that's pretty awesome. Sorry, I just gotta get my dog inside here. But that was yeah. But that was just like how it was. Like they didn't know, how far the NXT universe was reaching at that point in time, and we didn't know. Um, and I mean, if they did know, they sure weren't letting us know, and they didn't act like they knew. So
Yeah.
that's the best, explanation I can give for why I think a lot of those things happened at that time, and why the ball was dropped. Like not only with us, but so many afterwards. Like it's just kind of was just like a disconnect, bringing the two worlds together better right away. Like Vince wasn't really that much of the NXT product, so he didn't have anything invested in it.
Yeah, there's a. It feels like again the Ascension, as I brought up many different times, was kind of the glue of the original NXT show. So now we're like, oh yeah, they're brought up, but you weren't booked like you even said earlier how you didn't like taking out wrestlers in 1 minute and really not having matches. You're just beating the crap out of
You know?
people, and like that works for a
Yeah,
little bit, but it doesn't work forever. But yet
right.
you eventually do fight the New Age Outlaws and you win there, but like it just felt like on commentary they just went out of their way. As my light shut off, they just went out of their way to just crap on you, and I have no idea why. Very confusing why, but it just doesn't make any sense. Why invest in someone if you're not going to complete the investment? Like, oh, we'll put this money in, but we're not going to put all of our money in. Like, but you already spent all this other money. Why don't you to continue on? It was shocking to me.
I know. It's still like to me. I think the other day I'd made some like just random thought about it again, and I wish I remembered what I had come to because it was like a little bit different of a conclusion, but it's still always just like the like how many investments are you going to waste? Like you know, it blows me away.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if obviously now things could be a lot different, um, but I don't know. Like that's just kind of what happened on that trip.
Yeah, yeah, but eventually you do have some very entertaining things with Cody Rhodes and Stardust and the Cosmic Wasteland. And again, if this happened
Yeah.
in today's world, I feel like social media would have grabbed onto it and made the memes and made the shirts and got all into it. At the time, it was looked at as like, I don't know if I should like this or not like this. But what were your thoughts? And were these vignettes that you were producing backstage all improv, some writing? What was going on there? Because there's some creative things happening in those backstage promos with you three.
The stuff with Cody was a lot of just Cody. And I think it was just a lot of us feeding off of each other because Cody already kind of knows what he wants to do. And he brought out like a lot more in us. Like it was a lot of fun working with him. Um, we really enjoyed that time. Like it was, he was just so different than everybody else. Like, and not in, I mean, not a good or a bad way,
Yeah.
like saying something bad about other people, but like his drive and like his obsession um, for everything within the business is like nobody else's. Um, it's tiring for me to think about because like he's just one of those guys like him and Miz, like they never turn off. They're always, always, always working, and I don't know how people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you want it like nobody else wants it, but I guess at the same time, like they show that it pays off. Like I think a lot of the times, especially so like with at that point with us and Cody, like he was really frustrated, but he never showed us how frustrated he was. He was always still like picking everything up and making it a positive and moving us forward. Even if they dropped the ball that week and didn't move us forward, he would still find a way to move us forward, whether it was using social media or whatever else. Like there was, you can't stop him. You couldn't stop him. So like it's pretty awesome to see that you know what everything that's happened with him has worked out because like he's a guy that you can't stop someone like that, and it's awesome to see. You and
Did you think at the time with Stardust that you would say, 8 years from now, this guy is going to be the WWE champion, winning at WrestleMania in the main event with John Cena and The Undertaker and The Rock, the Bloodline? Like, did you did you see it? Like, can you sometimes think this person can break out of this shell they put him in, or sometimes you're like, this is over, it's done. There's no way to continue.
um, I mean, like I said, I didn't think there was any stopping Cody with whatever he wanted to do because like people don't, you can't keep up with him no matter what, and like it just goes to show. Like it's really one of those things. Like when he left, I was like, oh, he's gonna go do something. I wasn't wrong there. So I mean, when he came back, I was like, he's only coming back if like he's getting what he wants. So he's getting what he wants. I mean, there's there's very few people that I've met in the world who I would say nothing can stop them, and he's one of those people. And it's just that mindset that he has, his work ethic, his creativity. Um, he's just got it. I mean, there's not too many people. I wish I had that because I'd be able to manage my time a lot better. I wouldn't be 10 minutes late for our interview and then still scrambling to try to figure out which one of my devices is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of
Like that wouldn't
course.
happen.
Yeah.
But it does, like, and that's like the crazy thing that I always think of with him. It's just that work ethic and attitude is just parallel to none. And there's just so few that have it. I mean, it's awesome. I loved being around it because like he's so much fun to be around. Um, he's a great guy to learn from, learn with. Like when we used to sit there and do our paint before the live events and stuff like that, he would always bring up his iPad and be like, "What are we watching on the network today? What are we gonna like learn from while we're doing our paint?" And so like that was, we'd always pick from matches and like we'd find fun stuff, um, to play with or like super cool stuff to try to use or work in here and there. I mean, yeah, it's not too many guys I can say I did that kind of thing with when I was working with him, and it was so cool. So I always have really great memories of that, and it's so awesome to see the outcome for him now. You know,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was at WrestleMania 40 and boy, those people went crazy. I was also at WrestleMania 39, and people were sad. People were trying to rip the chairs out of the arena and like throw shit. I'm like, bro, that's bolted to the
Wow.
floor. I do not think you're gonna pull that
Right.
out with your hands. He tried.
Right.
He failed. But WrestleMania 40,
Yeah.
though, people were filled with joy and happiness. And again, as I
Yeah.
mentioned off the top of this interview, in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, people are gonna still chase down the original. I'll call them the cast, the roster of NXT on the network. And you're forever connected to the beginning of everything we're in with now with the WWE on Netflix coming up and CW with Netflix, CW with NXT, SmackDown USA, the PLEs. Like without the foundation of NXT starting off with you and the people you're involved with, NXT wouldn't be where it is today. So, I tip my hat if I was wearing one to you, to all the memories in the foundation you created for so many superstars that went on to become something else. And so, thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for the
Well,
memories
thank you.
and kicking the crap out of Too Cool at Arrival.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that was fun. Like I say, that's always one of those things. I've never forgotten that one. Yeah, what a day.
Man, it's
Yeah.
and again, so many things have happened. We talked about Bray Wyatt today, and Corey Graves, and Roman Reigns, and Cody Rhodes. So what's
Right.
next for you? Because we see Connor in TNA, and then we see you in random places as well. What's next for you?
Not too much. I do some producing and backstage work with National Wrestling Alliance, which is somewhere I had always wanted to work. And when the opportunity came up, um, I was like, I mean, I'd been out of wrestling for a little while. I'd just been kind of burnt out and not feeling it. I mean, me and Connor were just kind of cursed together for a long time, and it just seemed to carry over even after we were gone. And it was just one of those things where it was like, I think maybe just let's go do our own things.
Why do you
It'll
feel
be
like you were
better for
cursed
both
though?
of us. Because anything, we had a lot of good things that were always lined up that never happened.
Hmm.
Nothing ever worked out the way it was supposed to with us. Like it was one of those sure fail things. Like everything. I mean, when we first got released, we were kind of excited. We had a lot of things lined up. Um, we had 2 weeks, 2 weeks of doing indies and some conventions, and we were having so much fun. And then COVID hit, and I mean, we were booked solid every weekend. Um, for a lot of really awesome stuff. And we were super excited about it. And then COVID hit and wiped it all out. And we just kind of continued to have like problems always afterwards. Like nothing would come together ever the way it was supposed to.
Hmm.
And I just eventually got kind of fed up because nothing bigger that we were attempting to do worked out. Like we had some stuff at one time set up with Ring of Honor, to go hopefully work with the Briscoes, and then um, some stuff happened beyond our control that messed all that up. And then there was, we were supposed to maybe go work with NWA, to do some stuff, and then that things beyond our control yet again. Um, like it was just like, what is this curse that keeps happening? It is more or less what kept happening with us. And I just didn't feel like we were doing justice to ourselves anymore. I know I wasn't enjoying as much as I wanted to what we were doing.
Hmm.
Like it was very hit and miss. Um, and I think we just needed the time apart to maybe find ourselves within wrestling. Like I kind of, I needed to just get away from the business, be a regular human, do, I don't know, whatever I needed to do. And like within that time, I kind of did it. And then once my friend Chris Silvio invited me to come coach at Death Proof Dojo here in Tampa, Florida, I kind of started to like find myself within it again. And I like that position. I like coaching at the dojo. And he had been working with NWA. So when they came down here to do some shows, I kind of went to make sure our students stayed in line. And because they'd never really been to a TV taping before or anything. And so I just went to kind of make sure, hey boys, I want to go say hi to some friends, and you guys don't, you know, don't do something stupid, make us look bad. And just the feeling from the locker room there, I was like, wow, this is really cool here. I really like these people. It's a really good environment. I'd been talking with Dr. Tom, who was one of my favorite coaches and like a very good friend, like mentor friend to me as well. While we had been in developmental, and he had kind of said, "Hey, would you be interested in maybe doing producing if you don't feel like bumping anymore?" And I said, "I think I might." And so, a few months later, I've been working with NWA now for just over a year. And I mean, I love it. I love the product and the environment. It's just old school wrestling.
Yeah.
Like I had a friend just come to the show here in Tampa who I don't think he'd ever really like watched it much before in its reincarnation or now. And at the live event, like when you watch it live, sometimes there's no entrance music when when guys come out to the ring. He's like, "Dude, what's with that? It's not as cool." I'm like, "Dude, it's just old school wrestling. Old school studio wrestling is what you got at that show. Like this isn't like a crazy pay-per-view. It's just like when you used to watch NWA on TV on local television,
Oh yeah.
30 years ago, 40 years ago. Same thing. I go, it's awesome. You just get some wrestling. Not all the show and pomp and circumstance.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like it.
I love
I
me some
enjoy it.
Kenzie Page and EC3, and of course Trevor Murdoch, and there's so
Right,
many great athletes there as well. And I've interviewed Billy
right,
Corgan many different times about NWA, and so I've shared my passion, and obviously you have it for NWA as well. There's so many great
yeah,
organizations going on right now, and don't be skipping out on NWA because, like I said, Kenzie Page, and before that, Camille with 800 days as champion. That
right, yeah,
very impressive stuff
yeah,
there. So awesome that you're involved in NWA. Maybe we can talk more about NWA another time. But right now, I think we should
yeah,
wrap
definitely.
this baby up because we have done everything and talked about everything underneath the sun. Next time, we'll have to do a little more deep dive into NWA and pay per views that are coming up because, again, events are selling out for them. Huge
Yeah,
opportunities on the CW app. Like, there's not just one moment, there's a bunch of moments of NWA so far in 2024. So,
yeah.
Victor, thank you so much for sharing your
Thanks for having
stories,
me,
your
Steve.
passion, and everything.
Yeah.
And my light went off again. So that means it's either on fire from our conversation or it's out of battery.